On the one hand, I was studying the history of Zionism, and on the other hand, I was studying the history of the Arab-Palestinian movement. To make a long story short, one of the things I found studying the history of the Arab-Palestinian movement was that the founder of that movement, a man by the name Haj Amin al-Husseini, had organized several terrorist attacks against the Jews in the Yishuv in British Mandate Palestine. The fourth of those great terrorist attacks against the Jews of Mandate Palestine was organized with weapons sent by Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. When World War II broke out, Husseini had been the Mufti of Jerusalem. He created so much violence in Mandate Palestine that the British felt they needed to do something about that. So he escapes to Iraq, where he organizes the Farhud, which was a giant pogrom of the Baghdadi Jews, ended Jewish life in Baghdad. And then he went to Rome, where he was received by Mussolini like a head of state. And finally to Berlin, where he again was received as a head of state and was turned into a top Nazi. They gave him an entire bureaucracy, a budget. His bureaucracy was called Bureau des Gros Mufti, because he was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. And he used that power to organize entire SS divisions for Heinrich Himmler that participated in the Yugoslav chapter of the Holocaust. These were SS divisions made up of Bosnian Muslims and Albanian Muslims, Kosovo Muslims. And then he became the partner and best friend to Adolf Eichmann. And together with Adolf Eichmann, they created and administered the entire death camp system that murdered the European Jewish population in World War II.
I think even in Israel, people are not aware enough of his part in the Holocaust. I mean, there's a famous picture of him seated with Adolf Hitler, very friendly.
Yeah. You're correct. Most people don't know about this, even in Israel. And they also didn't know that after organizing the final solution, Husseini escaped to Cairo. And in Cairo, he's the guy who created Al-Fatah. He gave Yasser Arafat and Mahmoud Abbas German Nazi training, because many German Nazis were coming to Cairo to seek refuge with Gamal Abdel Nasser.
So you discovered all this material about the origins of the Palestinian national movement and how Husseini, his role in the Holocaust had been memory holed out of history.
That's right. He was erased from history.
Erased.
When I found out about Husseini's role in the Holocaust, it seemed to me that public should know about it, because you're thinking, for example, about the logic of the Oslo process. You can't possibly understand what's really going on unless you know about Husseini. So people had this story about the PLO abandoning terrorism and now being interested in peace. But if you know the history of Haj Amin al-Husseini, which people didn't know, it begins to look very different, because the entire purpose for Husseini of creating Al-Fatah, which by 1970 becomes the PLO because they swallowed the PLO. He created Al-Fatah in order to continue the genocide in Israel. That was the entire purpose of Al-Fatah. So if you know the story of al-Husseini, when you look at the Oslo process, it begins to look like an attack on Israel. It is impossible that the people who organized the Oslo process, namely the US bosses, the people running the United States, didn't know about al-Husseini, because it took me only 2 weeks of library work in my university library to learn all about him. It's not as if this information is difficult to find.